Oh, also remember this is going up on YouTube, so people will be seeing if you like pick your nose or scratch your butt or
We're not
whatever.
streaming
So
live,
no,
but yeah, we
You're
will.
we
not
do.
editing either.
No, we
No,
are
we're not.
not.
Yeah,
So
Uh,
Mike
Put your
ain't
cross
got
that
time for
down.
that.
I ain't got time to do no damn editing. Eventually, we will start editing, but after vacation. So,
I can't really rate this up
all right, you guys ready?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, three, two. Hey everyone, welcome back to Earth Station One. It's now time to get groovy with the Munsters. Mr. Mike, ready to take it away?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, in 1964, America and actually pop culture, the world was it was introduced to a frightful family, and actually relevant to Netflix this fall. But enough about the Addams family. We're talking about the Munsters because both of them made their debut in 1964, and both of them have things on Netflix. I think the Addams family has a series coming up a little bit later in the month or next month, something like that. But in any case, we're here to talk about the Munsters. This is from Universal Studios, and yeah, it's going to be great fun. We're going to talk about the original series up through the Netflix movie. We'll try not to do any heavy spoilers regarding that movie in case those people haven't seen it, but we will be delving into all of that. And we've got a great crew to talk all about it with Ricky and Bambi. I know you're usually here for the music, but this time you're here for the Munsters.
That's right.
Awesome. And we've got returning to our show, our station, John McCarthy is back too.
How are you guys?
Hi, very excited to have you all with us. Let's get right into it. We'll start with you, Bambi. Do you remember you being introduced to the Munsters? Which iteration of it? Was it the original series or what? How did you fall in love with this frightful family?
It was the black and white version, original. I'm assuming original.
Mhm.
I don't know. It seems like it was on TV after Flipper or something. I don't remember exactly. It was like some marathon I had seen, and I thought it was awesome. I liked Lily a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ricky?
I remember seeing the original black and white show and reruns as a kid. It's just the Munsters has been around as far back as I can remember.
Yeah.
I mean, it was on the air before I was around, but
Me too.
Yeah.
growing
I
up,
don't
I remember
I,
always
I
having the Munsters.
I don't think any of us are old enough to have watched it when it was on prime time. John, you're not even that old, right?
I missed it by a little bit, but yeah, no, I don't think my mother was sitting there with me on her lap watching this thing.
No, we would have needed Maddox up here or something like that to get
Yeah,
that kind of
right.
thing.
John, do you remember watching the Munsters, being introduced to them?
Probably as soon as I could sit up, I was in front of the TV watching something, and I would have been, I guess, 3 years old, which would mean this thing would have been just in its first year in syndication, I think, 67. So, I mean, it was on every afternoon. The kind of thing you memorize just by watching it over and over and over again.
Yeah, because there's only I say only, but it only lasted 2 seasons. I think
Yeah.
there's a total of 70 episodes.
Yeah.
So if you're showing it like Monday through Friday, you're going to see the same episodes a lot in the course of a year or so, right? So, Mike, what about you? What are your feeling early days of the Munsters?
Oh, it was after school, most definitely. It was on Channel 5, and they had the Addams family. Then they had the Munsters, and they had Lost in Space, and all that kind of stuff. And fell in love with the Munsters. It was campy. It was fun. It wasn't ever scary at all, and that's what made it wonderful. And then it was the theme song, and it was so catchy and everything that it was hard not to like. And I probably was 5 or 6 when I first saw them, and so this was probably 74, 75 at that time. So it was pretty cool to be able to watch it and fall in love with it, and even get favorite episodes and stuff like that, and know the characters really, really well. And, wanting to go, wow, that would be a neat family to hang out with. So it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I saw them in syndication as well. I think they were on I'm pretty sure they were on weekday afternoons, Monday through Friday, on channel TV 38, which was one of our local UHF channels. And yeah, I mean, it was a sitcom, a family sitcom that was like, a lot of those were heavy in rotation syndication, like My Three Sons, Leave It to Beaver, all that stuff. And those were put on those were put on in front of me, but I didn't really get those. But the Munsters I did right away. I've always liked, I don't even know where it came from, I've always liked spooky stuff. Haunted Mansion and all of that stuff, Halloween season, everything like that. So the Munsters fit in. I do remember, and just as I don't want to talk about, I mean, we could do a whole show on Munsters versus Addams, because it's almost impossible to talk about one without the other, because they made their debut at the same time, and they're both very different, but they're both, they're a lot of people equate them the same. But I do remember going to visit my grandmother in Illinois, and they had the Addams Family on syndication. And that was the first time I've ever seen the Addams Family. I don't recall a station locally to have the Addams Family. So for me, I was deprived of the Addams Family for a long time. And I was quote unquote stuck with the Munsters, even though I enjoyed the Munsters a lot too. But what do you think? What was it about the Munsters that, throughout those 70 episodes, because it seems like that was our introduction to all of them, what it was about it that kept you watching and enjoying the show? John, we'll start with you on that one. What was the thing about the Munsters that you really liked, enjoyed?
Again, not to the apples and oranges of Addams Family and the Munsters. I think it was the universe, the world they had built. The intro was cool, pulled you right in. Not as Mike said, there was nothing scary about it. It just seemed like a lot of fun, between Grandpa screwing up whatever magic spells he was trying to pull off, and Eddie having problems at school. It just seemed a slightly skewed version of the middle class life that was just outside your front door, but their car was so much cooler, and
Oh, so much so.
They had a dragon under the front stairs. It was there's so many, the sight gags were fun. They just they didn't dwell on it. They just kind of coasted you right through it. It was just a fun ride, especially for a young kid, and I never grew out of it.
Ricky?
I think I couldn't really put my finger on something specific about the Munsters, but it definitely stood apart from other shows on TV. I think the Addams Family similarly stood apart, even though the Munsters and the Addams Family were both very different shows. So I can't tell you exactly what it is that attracted me to the Munsters, but right from the beginning, right from first seeing them, I was hooked.
I think it's one of those things where my parents didn't know the difference, but I did. Like, my parents were just like, "Oh, you're just watching, what is it, the Addams, whatever, and then one or the other," and they just mixed them up together. And I'm like, they're different, Mom. Like, you don't understand. And to them, it was just a black and white macabre themed series.
Star Wars, Star Trek, they're all the same.
Exactly. Stan Lee, didn't he create Batman? That kind of thing. Right. Bambi, was there something in the show? You said particularly Lily, right?
Yeah, well, Lily and Grandpa, probably because at the time I guess I was in elementary school, and I had just gotten into reading Dracula. I liked to read when I was a kid, and I had made it through Dracula and suddenly was just vampire. I love vampire stuff. And stumbling across that show, I was like, what's this? I thought Lily was a vampire, and I thought Grandpa was her grandpa, or dad.
I think technically they are.
She's always questionable to me. I mean, Grandpa totally vampire, but I was never sure with her, except when I was a little kid. I thought she totally was. So I liked the spooky vampire type stuff that was going on, and still like that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, was there something about the series that attracted you as well and kept you watching?
Well, no matter how monstrous they looked or anything, they were a normal family. They had as they said, the dynamic. You had the mother, you had the father, you had the grandfather, you had the son, and you had the niece living with them. The poor ugly looking niece, and which was, it was a lot of fun. And there was something about Fred Gwynn's version of Herman that was so likable. It was impossible to hate the guy or to be scared by him. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the laugh.
Oh, it was awesome. And I got to meet Fred Gwynn later in years, and he was Herman. He literally was what you saw up on the screen, a likable guy and very jovial, very friendly. And that's what was kind of awesome about it. And it was neat to be able to, see that as a kid. And, these are, because you had heard about the Wolfman and Frankenstein and Dracula and, and it was just like, it all made sense. And at the time, I had never watched any of these movies. I had just heard about them in school and everything. So it was neat to be able to say, well, I know the Munsters, so it's, pretty cool. So it was a neat experience with that. And, it was easy to watch. And it also, if you missed an episode or two, you didn't have to know what was going on in the story too. So that made it even easier because, I'll admit it. My mom used to watch Dark Shadows when I was a kid, and that scared the living hell out of me. And, and then having the Munsters as almost like the complete opposite of it. And, so it was pretty awesome.
And Dark Shadows followed more of a storyline from episode to episode, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It's a soap opera. It's a soap opera.
It was a true
episodes,
soap opera. Yeah.
Lost.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I mean, Dark Shadows had that soap opera format, so they were serialized, but most sitcoms, most TV shows were episodic. And that's why I can't really binge, even with the Munsters. I couldn't, like, doing research for this, I couldn't binge like more than like 4 or so at a time, just because they get so repetitive. Because they always have to say their same, they always have to say the catchphrases. They always have to, like, it kind of explain without it really explaining everything. Like, because every time they air, somebody's probably watching it for the first time.
Right.
I mean, this is before. I mean, think about it. This is 1964. Most people have, if they have a TV, they have black and white TVs, because color is just starting to get out there, but. And so it's very, they certainly weren't like, it wasn't like appointment television where you like, or not today, where you could just binge it and stream it or whatever. I mean, if you missed it, you missed it. So and that was kind of syndication too. Because if you missed it, you never knew when it was gonna, like, oh, I missed that one. If it was like a 2-parter or something, you never knew when you might see that other part.
Also, I think might run them out of order.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. But there was no, and on the production side, there's no continuity, or there's very little continuity. There's very little, like, something, somebody who's an uncle one episode will later on be like a cousin, or like they don't, like, or might be a completely different character. Actors will play different parts. It is very, like, kind of with today's mindset of continuity and canon, it is frustrating sometimes to watch these shows and like, wait a minute, that's not right. That doesn't, especially if you're applying the monster mythos to all of them. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, why is Grandpa outside during the day?
Yep.
Like, how does that work?
Well, Grandpa is Dracula. Lily is a vampire. Fred is, Herman is Frankenstein's monster. How did they get Eddie?
Yep.
Well, it was the swinging 60s. It's okay.
What I think is interesting is that Uncle Lester, right? Who only appeared like in a brief episode back in the day, is a werewolf as well. So it's like, okay, so there is werewolf.
Interesting.
There is werewolf blood in that DNA, but
or maybe Lily just had him call him Uncle.
Eddie had lots of aunts and uncles growing up. That's all we'll say.
My entire childhood.
Yeah, really. But one thing that I think I glommed onto, and the thing that I really appreciated about the Munsters, was the relationship between Herman and Grandpa. Like, they were like a great 1-2 act. They were always getting into misadventures, doing stuff. And it just, I think that's why I kept watching, because the other characters I thought were okay. I do find it interesting that none of us have said that Eddie pulled us in, even though we were all kids. So Eddie should be the one that we glom onto. Isn't that the theory from them when they're producing, we have to have a kid in it because we need a kid's perspective because kids are watching this? And yet none of us really none of us cared about the kid, right?
That might be the theory, but I hated Cousin Oliver.
It's true.
That's required.
That's another 10 years in the future.
Cousin Oliver.
They had the same theory about Robin. No one wanted to be Robin. Everyone wanted to be Batman.
Yeah.
And when you want to hang out with the monsters, because both Grandpa and Herman had childlike aspects to them, you felt like they were the big kids. You wanted to hang with them.
Well, it's interesting too, because Al Lewis and Fred Gwynne had such amazing chemistry together anyway.
Absolutely.
And they originally appeared together on Car 54, Where Are You? Before that.
Yeah, so they had a head start before anybody else in terms of working together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And just the dynamic. And truthfully, if you ever, have seen interviews with Al Lewis or anything, it wasn't much of a stretch for him to play Grandpa. It really wasn't.
The great thing about Grandpa is he could be grumpy, but he wasn't so grumpy he put you off, that you disliked the character.
Right.
And occasionally he'd go through cycles. He'd warm up to Herman. He'd be mad at Herman. And Herman would be bordering on mature, and then he'd be doing something else. But
the innocence of Herman, played by Fred Gwynne, was something that I thought was actually as compelling too. Watching the episodes this time, I just felt enamored by his performance. He just really pulls you in, because he's such an I guess in the original sitcom they're supposed to be over 100 years old, because I think in one episode they celebrate their 100th anniversary married. So they've been around for a while. But Herman acts like he just was created a week ago. He doesn't know how banks work. He doesn't know how things work. He doesn't know things how to, well, I don't know how banks work either, so I can't blame him.
Yeah, wait a minute, but it was also really interesting too, because the characters always wanted to be shown as normal, and they were always shocked when the neighbors or their coworkers or people coming to the house, when they came to the door or something, oh my god, it's a monster, run and everything, and they are always shocked that happened. And
that's very strange.
Exactly.
And clearly they don't have an HOA, because
No, I don't know if this was well, they're in the suburbs. I don't know if there were HOAs then. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know the history of HOAs, but yeah. I can't imagine. Well, I'm pretty sure that, I don't know, that probably was an episode, right, where it came up or something. I don't know, because that's the other thing. They didn't do like outlandish fantasy things. They did normal, like they took what, like the same plot lines that My Three Sons and Leave It to Beaver and all those shows were doing, and they just applied them as to Monsters doing it. And I think it was a great, like, sort of satire really on that kind of sitcom, the family sitcom. I don't know if they really, thought of it that way when they were making it, but looking back on it now, I feel like they were a little bit more subversive, maybe not completely, but I think they were the Munsters was I think maybe one of the first times I'd seen a sitcom and the husband and wife are in the same bed.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it was okay because they were monsters.
I think Dick Van Dyke, though, was one of the first ones that did that. But I think Munsters were very close behind that.
Could be.
You wish
Yeah.
too.
I Love Lucy do that?
No, they did not.
Oh no, they had separate beds,
That's
big time.
Little Ricky was a miracle.
Yeah, I was like wondering.
And Eddie was the opposite. Do we have any thought?
Continuity, Mike?
What's
you saying about continuity before?
Uh-huh.
They changed their appearance over part of the first season, and if you watch those episodes out of order, you clueless why Herman looks goofy in one and far more foreboding in another one, because they softened his appearance over the first, I don't know, 13 weeks or something like that. I forget.
Yeah. Well, a lot of changes there. I mean, Marilyn was played by Beverly Owen in the first 13 episodes, right. And then she was replaced by Pat Priest. I saw a making of documentary, and it was brutal, but it was kind of true, because it said that when that first episode when Pat Priest replaced Beverly Owen, when that aired, nobody knew the difference. Like, I was like, well, they had hired someone to look almost exactly like her. She got the job because she could fit into the wardrobe. Like, she was supposed to, I mean, she was supposed to be like very similar. So I don't, on either one of them. And then when they did the movie, it's a different one. Actually, when they do Munster Go Home, it's a different Marilyn. When they do Monsters Revenge, it's a different Marilyn. It's a different Eddie on Monsters Revenge, and then later on. I mean, I don't think people realize the history of this franchise, and that just taking Herman Munster, that character, Daniel Roebuck, who plays him in the new Rob Zombie movie, he's the 6th actor to play Herman over the last 60 or whatever it's been years.
It's Grandpa.
And
Roebuck played Grandpa, Mikey.
Oh yeah, you're right. So
right.
So yeah, I mean, it's like it's amazing to me, like, how many iterations of these characters there've been, but the original series just has a huge shadow over all of those.
Oh yeah,
I remember one of
them. Have any of you seen the follow-ups to the series? Because there've been
I didn't realize there were as many as there were until
I was shocked until
it's been a long
time.
There's
like I said, there were the 2 movies after the series ended in, like I said, it only went 2 seasons. So it's 1966, it was over. I do think, for the record, for those people counting, it did end after the Addams Family. So it did. The Addams Family
lasted 2 years too.
The last episode of the Addams Family was in April 8th of 66, and the Munsters made it to May 12th. So they actually technically beat the Addams Family as far as their initial run. I think they have more episodes too. The Munsters have 70 episodes, and the Addams Family only have 64. So I don't know. Like I said, if you're doing a competition, like that it is. But
they said Batman killed the Munsters.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I killed both of them.
Both of them?
Because, well, yeah, I mean, they both ended at the same time, and I think people wanted, well, the prevailing opinion is that people wanted color, exciting color shows, and Batman was offering that, and so a lot of the other shows of that kind of fantasy element, that the sitcoms just kind of couldn't hold a candle to them.
We had some that switched, like Gilligan's Island.
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe I Dream of Jeannie was originally black and white.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Bewitched
Look-
too.
Which
Yeah, Bewitched. Yeah.
Lost in Space went
Lost
from
in
black and
Space.
white color.
you had some that made the switch in 66.
Doctor Who.
The Munsters was supposed to be in color. The pilot was filmed in color.
Well, yeah.
And that's available if anybody wants to see it. That's available on YouTube, at least part of it anyway. That's
The
weird.
thing
The
on
original
DVD.
the original pilot is a very different show. There's a different Eddie. The character of Eddie
Really?
is completely different. And the color looks okay, but I know that the other day when we were talking, Ricky, you made an interesting observation that the Munsters is better served in black and white. You think?
Yeah.
I think the Munsters worked in black and white. I do think Munsters Go Home was okay in color, but it didn't look like the pilot.
That's
It
true.
was like a different look to the Munsters Go Home. And I'm sure part of it was the makeup and part of it was the way that was shot. But part of it was just the actors were comfortable playing those roles by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked it both ways.
Yeah, because we only saw Fred Gwynn and that crew. We only saw them in color twice. The movie Munster Go Home and then Munster's Revenge after that, which was like 20 years after that. It was like in 81 or something like that.
Yeah.
So a big jump there. But and I did read that that Fred and Al they hired the same makeup people that worked
wow.
on the show for those two movies because they wanted to keep the look consistent.
Yeah.
And I do think that the one thing that the Munsters had was that they had the library and they could use the Universal monsters.
Right.
They could, like, Fred Herman could look like the Frankenstein's monster that Boris Karloff played with the bolts and the flat head because it was a Universal thing, because nobody else other than Universal was allowed to use that kind of look for that monster. Similarly, you have like a creature from the Black Lagoon showing up as, he's an uncle, right? To Uncle Gilliman?
Yeah.
Is that something like that?
Uncle Gil.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's adorable.
which was awesome to see.
Uncle Gil.
Yeah. And you have I mean, Grandpa's never named. Well, they do call him the Count.
Right.
And Lily does say in an episode that I watched where she's filling out a application at the unemployment office, she does say her last name is Dracula.
Oh, okay.
So they are considered Draculas. And
Which was one of the bat necklace.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love Draculas.
Draculas.
So after the movies, after Fred and Al and that crew were done, they did a cartoon called, what was that, on Saturday mornings? I don't think that lasted very long. The Mini Munsters.
I never saw that.
I'm not
I
familiar.
never even heard of it. No.
Actually, I'm sorry. It was an animated 1 hour special, and it didn't go anywhere after that. So
Okay, that makes more sense.
That's been pretty good.
And then in 88 to 91, lasting 72 episodes, 2 more episodes than the original run, we have the Munsters Today, and that's got John Schuck as Herman, Lee Merriweather, former Batwoman or Batgirl, Catwoman, as Lily, and Jason Marsden as Eddie. I have seen very little of this show, and what I saw, it didn't really click.
Yep.
I don't think I've
It's supposed to be a continuation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 22-year gap that Grandpa actually put the family to sleep in like cryogenic freeze, and then they wake up in the 80s.
Forgot about that.
So they're supposed to be the same exact family. I think that was a mistake. I think they should have just rebooted.
Yeah.
It did not have the same charm.
Oh.
Right.
At all.
Have you
No.
guys? So you guys have seen that too?
Yeah, but I did. If my life depended on it, I couldn't have told you they went for 2 years. I
Yeah.
would have said
Yeah.
maybe half a year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
would have
watched
thought that
maybe
it
one or
got
two.
cut early from the first season.
Mhm. It was interesting too because the chemistry wasn't there between any of the characters.
No,
It was almost, felt a lot of times it was almost forced, but it was also nice to see, oh, they're back, the Munsters. But it wasn't, if they would have had some of the same actors or some, but it never really touched home for a lot of people.
It was nice to see the ads that it was coming.
Yeah.
Not so great.
They also had, I'm not sure the year on this, but they also had a Christmas, Scary Little Christmas special with completely different actors from Munsters Day and everything. And that I saw a couple of scenes from that, and that was painful. It's like there's some sort of mix up and with Herman and Santa or something like that, and it's just it was tough to watch. So I think a lot of those are available on YouTube. I'm not sure. I saw scenes of them, but that's all I really wanted to see. Now in 2012, Netflix, or I think NBC, tried out a totally new revamp of the Munsters called Mockingbird Lane. Now this was a 1-hour drama.
It was
Was
horrible.
that Eddie Izzard as Grandpa?
Eddie,
Oh,
yeah. And then
that was
I
great.
think Jerry McConnell was Herman. And I can't remember the other cast members, but did you guys, I remember watching this, but I think I liked Eddie Izzard anyway. So if he was in anything, I think I would enjoy him. But the rest of it, I didn't. This was not what I was wanting. Let's put it that way.
I thought it was good for what it was.
Okay.
It's my understanding that it was originally going to be a pilot episode for a new show.
Yeah.
And they spent so much money making it that they just did a one-off. They spent the whole budget for the show on the first episode. That's what I heard.
I really liked it.
Wow.
I liked it.
You like
the guy
it,
that
Bambi?
green lighted got a stake through the heart.
What what did you like about it?
It was significantly different than the original, but it was enough different where it felt like it was a new spin, enough of a new spin where it didn't offend me, I guess, because they weren't screwing up things.
Right.
It was clearly done differently. And I thought it was gorgeous the way that like the special effects and stuff that they chose to use for it worked. Like there was like the scene with Lily's dress. I think it's the bats or I can't remember if it was bats or spiders, but I was like, man, that was cool. I liked that.
I thought it was a good show. It may not have been my first choice for a Munsters reboot, but I would have watched it.
Yeah,
I would have watched the whole thing.
I wanted to see more.
I probably would. I don't know. I think Eddie Izzard would have kept me interested at least, and the material, just because I would have been interested. I don't know, but when I found out it was just a one-off and it wasn't going to go to series, I didn't cry. Like I wasn't like because I do think, I mean, look, when you see actor after actor after actor coming in and trying to recreate Fred Gwynn's performance, trying to recreate Al Lewis's performance, trying to recreate Yvonne DiCarlo's performance in the original series, that gets painful, right?
But
so I
really didn't seem to be trying to recreate the original.
Well, that's just it. With Mockingbird Lane, they just said, we're going to do something completely different, and therefore we don't have that shadow over us,
right?
So we're completely reinventing things. Mike, did you see any of that? Did you have any thoughts on any of those?
I saw the trailer for it and it just turned me off. And so it was just like, I think I'll pass on this, like pass on the other series. And it's just like, let the Munsters rest in peace, basically, is my thought.
Well, Netflix said no, we're not going to let them rest in peace.
No,
And
Netflix didn't listen to me.
And appropriately enough, a person named Zombie, brings the Munsters back to life with a new movie that just premiered on Netflix this past week. This is a prequel to the original series. So it shows Herman and Lily first meeting and falling in love and getting married, et cetera, et cetera. And it's got a few callbacks to the original series, a few characters, familiar characters, but obviously it's not like, it doesn't have Eddie and Marilyn or anything like that.
But it does have a reference to Car 54. Where are you?
It does.
Yes, it does. It does.
It's yeah.
I actually almost smiled at that one.
Yeah.
Almost.
The Munster Go Home. That's the first one that I watched that this week, and there is a point where Herman and Grandpa are find something and they need to go to the police, and Herman freaks out and he's like, "We got to call somebody. We got to call somebody. We got to call the police. We got to call Scott Yard. We got to call Batman." And I'm like, "That's funny." And then he just freaks out, "Car 54, where are you?" And I was like, Herman saying that, Fred Gwynne saying that with Al Lewis next to him, that was really funny. And so the fact that Zombie repeats that, I think is a fun callback. There's a lot of callbacks to the show, a lot of characters and everything like that. I could tell that Zombie was a fan. Let's put it that way. Because he knew his stuff. He knew the Munsters. But I know you guys have all seen it. So let's talk about how we felt about the prequel movie that just came out. I don't know, Mike, should we start with you? Do you want to just get it out there?
You can only go up from there.
Exactly. That's very true. No, it was an hour and 47 minutes and 30 seconds that I will never get back from my life. And it was interesting. We watched it on Thursday and Judy and I were like, let's give it a chance since we're doing, so many people have been liking it on Facebook and, people I know and actually sometimes respect, but, their taste, but not anymore. No. It was interesting. I went in with an open mind thinking, oh, this is gonna be fun, this could be great. I'm not a huge Rob Zombie fan. I wasn't a huge fan of some of his projects in the past and everything that he's done. So, I've been following the making of it, the casting and everything. I was like, I'll give it a shot. I'll give it. I didn't find it funny. I found it very forced. And I didn't see any chemistry between any of the characters at all. And the only character I actually even really liked was seeing Grandpa. I loved it. Was a total homage to Al Lewis. And you could tell the actor they had, who I've seen in many, many different projects, was a fan of Al Lewis and was trying to channel him and did a really good job of it. I liked it a lot. That was my bright spot for it. Second bright spot, of course, Sylvester McCoy as Igor and everything, which was really cool to see. And so other than that, though, I was just, I found myself bored with it. I found myself, trying to follow. I was following along, watching the story, and it was like, if they would have had it at an hour and condensed, it might have been a little easier, but I thought it was too spread out. And in a lot of ways, they were just filling time. And, I won't be going back to this one.
I don't know what the plan is, if there's going to be any more. It is creating quite the, well, not like it, everything that comes out gets like it, either people love it or they hate it. It's the worst thing or it's the best thing. So yeah, but this has been getting a lot of mixed reviews from people who, like you said, Mike, people who really like the franchise and people who like have liked it and not liked it. So it's definitely not yeah, it's your mileage might vary on this one. So John, what was your mileage on the Rob Zombie prequel film?
I got a little further down the road than Mike. I no preconceived notions. I didn't follow the making of it, only that it was being made. Butch Patrick, when I saw him at Eternal Con, said hey, they did a great job, but you don't know if he's just standing up for the franchise. But so
he did do a voice, so he did get paid. So technically, he
and I actually downloaded my iPad and I watched it on the commute last week. And I got halfway through on the way home one night, and I realized at a certain point I was smiling. Was it great? No, but I thought the color palette was gorgeous. A lot of the shots were great. Costuming and it checked off a lot of boxes. Costuming, makeup, a lot of boxes got checked. Like you said, a lot of callbacks to the original series. There were costumes they lifted from the original series. Like, do you remember what Herman, when he was it must have been his earlier shot in the furry suit, what
yep.
He was trying to, that was in there. The a few things they pulled out.
Keep going.
Okay.
I thought the guy who played Herman Munster did a good job of playing Herman Munster as played by Fred Gwynne. I thought he did a better job of that than a lot of the other people who've tried to play Herman Munster. I thought the Eddie Izzard as Grandpa version, who is it who played
Grandpa
here? Daniel Roebuck?
Herman.
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 Jerry O'Connell.
Oh, Jerry Connell, yeah.
I thought he did his own thing, but it definitely wasn't Fred Gwynne. Like, he just went a completely different direction.
Right.
But as far as the guys who tried to pull it off the way that Fred Gwynne did, I thought this guy did a better job than anybody else besides Fred Gwynne. After hearing so many complaints about Sherry, I thought she did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
I mean, I was expecting her to just be terrible from what I'd heard about it, but I actually thought she was fine. I liked the story after they came to the United States. I thought from there on, it was a pretty good story. I thought
no spoilers.
building up to that, it dragged a lot. And there were things that just didn't need to be in the movie. I too am of the opinion that it could have been trimmed down. I think it could have been an hour and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
So unlike most people who either loved it or hated it, I'm kind of in the middle. It was good, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, I think that's where I stand too. I think I enjoyed it overall, but I can't say that, if they decide to go to series with this, I'll check it out. If not, then I'm fine with that too. I think that everybody's talked about the lighting and the set design and the costumes and everything, and I agree. I think that was all. I find it really funny because interviews with Rob says that he wanted to film it in black and white, and I'm like, man, you don't show that at all because it's so full of color.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But and it's that I think, Ricky, did you say campy color? I like that because it's like that sort of like color from the 60s, like the Batman from the 60s color, right? Like it's that kind of that's what I really dig that. And I think that they all
very in your face style of lighting.
Yeah, and I appreciated that. I thought the makeup on all of them was great. The costumes were great. I did really appreciate that. I preferred the stuff in Transylvania. When it got to America, I was kind of like, to me, I was just kind of like waiting for it to like, I'm like, much longer is this going to go? How far are they going to match this up? I really thought maybe the last line, well, I'm spoilers here, maybe, but I thought the last line of the series was going to be like, Herman, I'm pregnant. I thought that was going to lead, because it seemed like it was leading right to the 60 series, right? Mm-hmm. Although, and it fooled, and the last line really fooled me, because that's not what happens at the end. I was like, oh, what? Anyway, Daniel Roebuck, we've said a lot about him, and he does a great job. I agree with all of that. Jeff Daniel Phillips, who plays Herman, he pulls enough from Fred Gwynne, like you said. The laugh is great. Like the laugh, I almost thought they audio in Fred Gwynne's laugh. Maybe.
Oh wow!
It's I don't think they did, but it's so good. But the innocence wasn't there. Like the Fred Gwynne, like sort of innocent, like I don't know what that is, or
childlike.
The childlike innocence was gone. Instead, we get this sort of teenage, rebellious, bad comedian Herman, and I was like, he's playing it really well, but that's not the Herman that I want to see necessarily. So that was it's like, it looks like Herman and it sounds like Herman, but it doesn't have that innocence, which I do appreciate that they didn't try to or they did sort of take the little bit, but then Rob Zombie let Jeff Daniel Phillips make it his own. Like he's like, I don't want to just ape Fred Gwynne. Yeah. I don't want to be a second-rate Fred Gwynne, So, it's a choice, and I still thought he was fun through a lot of it, and the various costumes I loved, especially the beach stuff. That was great. Yeah. I did not care for Sherry Moon Zombie. I did not think she played a great Lily. I thought she was too like oh, Herman, like she was. Yeah. I'm like, Lily doesn't talk like that. Like the Lily I know, she's not Katharine Hepburn. Like she's not like.
Definitely not
sing-songy voice.
No, Lily was the one who always felt like was in control of the whole situation and everything.
Yeah. I thought some of her agency was not there, but
oh my goodness,
there was a tone she hit that was similar to one of let's say the 3 or 4 main Lily tones, but she hit that and stayed there.
Yeah.
I feel like the original Lily was more the straight man of the show.
Yeah.
And not so she was a little bit not goofy, but flighty almost.
Yeah.
Flighty is a good way to put it. Yeah.
But I do think that she did a good job of playing her version of Lily.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Just to be garbage from what other people had said.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. And I thought that they had I think that's the other thing. And I know she's playing a vampire character, so whatever, but to me, she also seemed like much older than Herman, the actor wise. And I thought that was a weird sort of dynamic there. But I didn't the people dumping on her. I think the choices that she made, I didn't necessarily agree with, but that was what she did and she ran with it. And I did think there was some chemistry between her and Jeff Daniel Phillips. I thought that more importantly, I thought Jeff Daniel Phillips had chemistry with Daniel Roebuck, because they did sort of have 2 scenes, and I'm like, there it is, that spark between these guys. But of course, this is not that story. This is when the way the story is being told, like Grandpa is not really a fan, to say the least, and doesn't want to have anything to do with them, and so. Yeah, you're not going to get the team up. The other things I liked, Count Orlok was my favorite new character. I love Count Orlok. I thought he was awesome. So fun. I want to see a spin-off movie with Count Orlok.
Yeah.
I would be totally over that. Lester was okay.
Was he his photos?
What's that?
See his photos?
Yeah, I loved it. I was like,
those are the rats. Yeah.
Oh.
I'm like, oh yeah.
Don't you
I
want
did
to
that.
touch his nose?
Exactly.
It's like,
I'm like, substitute the R for the C, and I'm like, oh my God, that's me.
I wish he was joking, folks. I really wish he was joking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. But and I like, the callbacks. Like I said, we do get Uncle Gilly right in there,
Yeah.
and the outfits and all that kind of stuff.
Munster.
The only scene that I thought that really kind of dragged the Transylvania stuff down for me and could have been cut if we want to tie it, was the I Got You Babe scene. That added like nothing. Like that was awful.
That was,
I just thought
that was uncomfortable.
Yeah, that was almost that was kind of painful to watch. I didn't think
I had
that was
to
necessary.
explain to Bambi that was a Sonny and Cher reference.
Yeah. Well, I got it. Like when they started singing, I was like, oh, okay. It's mostly the wig, her wig she was wearing. I was like, okay, I get it. But it was way too long.
It was.
Gotcha.
That could have been a little vignette.
Yeah. That should have been on the that should have been a deleted scene on the DVD, or the Blu-ray, right? So okay, so we all, most of us got a little bit out of it. Mike, sorry it didn't work out for you, but maybe if you had prepped by watching some of the other horrible versions of the Munsters that have come out before, maybe you would have thought better about it. And maybe if I hadn't done that, maybe I would have dumped on the movie as much. I don't know. Who knows? But I do think it was
watching the other versions recently, and I still came away with it kind of a mixed bag.
I do think that like I said, I think it's the best version of the Munsters since the series. But I think we all agree that the series is what brought us to the table. Yep. And that's where the legacy really begins and may continue in some way, form in the future. Who knows? But before we wrap up, I'm just going to go to everybody. What is your favorite Munsters memory of the series? As episode,
Munsters,
a scene, anything like that?
Munsters.
I said Munsters? No.
You said Monsters.
Anyway, Munsters. Munsters Inc. Is that what we're talking about? I don't know. Bambi, we'll start with you.
Dragula, the car. Freaking awesome.
Yes. Both in color in Monster Go Home and in the episode Hot Rod Herman.
Yeah.
Those are, if you are big fans of the Chuck Barris cars, like those are, yep. So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. I think that's the other reason why I kind of like dig the Munsters too, because it's got that rockabilly aesthetic that kind of goes with Tiki as well. But it's got monsters, it's got rockabilly, it's got that sort of like aesthetic there. The music, as far as the theme song, it's like it's really cool. Ricky, what about you? Scene, episode?
I'm more of a fan of the Munsters coach than the Dragula.
The coach, the coach was pretty freaking awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember the Dragula from the show, but I really think of the coach.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's like the Batmobile. There were other vehicles on Batman, but I don't really think about them.
Yeah.
If it weren't for the Rob Zombie song about the Dragula, I probably never think about it. But the coach, definitely. A lot of people surprised that song wasn't in the Rob Zombie film, but I guess he thought that was too on the nose. John, what do you think?
Well, again, one of my favorite characters was the house. The stairs that open up, the spot you saw his nose, you saw his tail. It's pretty much all you saw. You wanted Grandpa, you wanted to be stomped on the floor. It was a great little bunch of set pieces. I wanted to see what else was in that house. I enjoyed it. So, but again, I don't want to steal Ricky's, but embarrassed. And the same guy built 66 and built this. So
and the Batmobile.
Yes.
The Batmobile.
The 66.
Which killed the Monster show. Mike, what about you? What a Munsters memory?
Oh, for me, especially as a little kid, was Spot. It had to be Spot. It was it was awesome. Also loving that the telephone was in a coffin
Yeah.
and was just awesome. It, all the little things in the house. And then the same thing, like John said, having to bang on the floor to get Grandpa to come up. And it was, coming out of the dungeon door in the floor and everything was like, it was just awesome. And I just loved the character in the house. But, sometimes it felt like that was an additional character on the show. And, you had the main characters, but then you had the house too. And it was always great. And sometimes, like when I was a kid, I was used to get their house and the Adams family, house mixed up and everything, expecting to hear when somebody rang the doorbell, it to go, or something like that.
You rang.
Exactly.
The Munsters couldn't afford a butler.
No. Well, it was always interesting too, because, a friend of mine, we were at lunch one day, not that long ago, saying, it's really interesting. The Munsters and the Adams family, they probably wouldn't get along because the Munsters were very blue collar and everything, where where the Adams were more upper crust. They, they didn't work. They had very old money. So it was very interesting to see, but it was an interesting series and I loved it. And anytime it's on TV and, on streaming or whatever, I'll pop up an episode just to watch. It's a ton of fun with that.
Yeah, and it is available. I'm sure it's available on Blu-ray and DVD and all that. But I also know it's available on Peacock, because that's how I streamed a lot of the episodes as well. I'll just say two things real quick. I know we talked about Eddie a little bit, not much because we didn't really identify with him. I will say I wanted that doll. I wanted that Wolfman doll. I didn't really care for Eddie, but man, Wolfie, it was like, man, how do I get a Wolfie? I don't know if they ever marketed those. They should market those Wolfies because that would be really cool. And also, if you're looking for an episode that's kind of cool and fun to watch of the Munsters, pull up the episode. I think this is from second season, called "Just Another Pretty Face." It's where there's an accident in Grandpa's lab, and Herman gets turned into Fred Gwynn. He has no makeup. He's got no padding or anything. He goes in. He's just Fred Gwynn for almost the entire episode, and the reaction of the family as well as himself and everything around him is just hilarious. Dom DeLuise has a cameo in that one.
Oh,
that
wow.
episode as well. Yeah, very young. I don't even know if I've ever seen Dom DeLuise that young. Anyway, all right, so that's enough about the Munsters. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be right back and close out the show.